Good morning, everybody. It's Monday. It's raining here in Brooklyn. It's your boy Will. It's the Memory Lapse. I want to do a quick deck tech. If you saw from the beginning, I'm 4 wins into another run with this deck, which, in my laziness, I've titled Blue-White Mid, but this is an MTG Arena adaptation of the Blue-White Historic deck and Standard. I gotta shout out my boy Drew Dawn, who streams this game pretty much every day, who kind of showed me this deck. I wasn't aware of it, because I'm still getting back into Magic. But the reason I wanted to share it is because, well, one, it's cool. It plays like a classic Magic deck, in my estimation, like the style of deck I like to play. And it is a, like, just lock to get 4 wins in Quick Constructed. I mean, I think I get 6 or 7 wins more often than any other amount. So if you're interested in going infinite and you already have some collection built, this is the deck for you. So I'll just go over the cards real quick and talk a little bit how it differs from what gets played in Standard. So of course we have Seal Away, just one of the best reasons to be white. It's just like unconditional, well, slightly conditional removal. It's key to surviving the red decks. It's really good against the green decks and the green-red decks and anything with creatures. This card's very good. The flexibility to cast it on their turn or your turn. It just gets the job done and helps you survive. And 3S and Scatter, again, just about surviving the early game, countering stuff that just going to chip away your life total before you stabilize. And then most importantly, both these things cost 2, which is key for when you have your Teferi turn on 5, plus them untap 2 lands, and now you have Seal Away and Essence Scatter up to help you defend. 2 Gideons, just because Gideon is good. I think it underperforms a little bit in this deck compared to like a straight blue-white control deck, but it's still worth having to play on turn 3. And again, like, he's very good for defending an initial Teferi turn. Like, if you get Gideon and Teferi in play, between Teferi's minus and Gideon's plus, it's very easy just to keep them going. Now, History of Benalia, this card is absolutely nuts, and I don't know, none of the sagas really impressed me when I was looking at them, and other than Mirari Conjecture, which is I think just like a fringe playable card in kind of a combo control deck, this is just insane for 3 mana. In the mirror match, or if you're up against like a blue-white approach deck or a blue-black control deck, the amount of damage this can put out for 3 mana, like, it can do 10 damage over 3 turns and then still leave you with 2 creatures in play. Oh, hey, I've updated our terms of use. The downside to this is that in those black-based and red-based control decks, it does turn on a lot of that removal. But it's very good at helping you stabilize the board against aggressive decks while you build to your win conditions. And it gets the removal out of their hand, like the Magma Sprays and the Lightning Strikes that would be used to take out some of your more important stuff. So for Wizard's Retort, I actually recorded a previous version of this video that I've decided to come back and re-record after playing a lot more with the deck over the weekend. And I had a split between like this and negates and stuff and syncopate, but just the nature of the format right now, you want this hard counter. It's good later against red deck, it's good against any of the creature decks, and it's very good to have something that has a negate like effect, even though it costs 1 more against the other blue decks. Often it's going to come down to like fighting over a Settle the Wreckage or a Cast Out, or fighting over their Approach the Second Sons, and you need the hard counter to get you there. And it has the spell reduction if you have Wrath in play. Cast Out doesn't need too much explanation. It's like a more expensive but more flexible Seal Away. Cycling, and this deck really wants to hit its land drops and does not have a lot of velocity unless you get a Teferi going. So cycling these early, like, don't be afraid, because your board presence more often than not is going to be much better than theirs. So if you can cast your 5 drops, you're going to win. Settle the Wreckage, just a 2 of. I think sometimes the opponent won't expect this since you're playing a more mid-rangey build, but it's just very good at getting rid of stuff that like has hexproof, um, like a Tyrant, Carnage Tyrant, or solving a Hazaret if you don't have a cast out or a seal away for it. So it's just a solid card. This is something that you could maybe go up or down in depending on what you're facing or what you're noticing. Shalai, it's a little weird playing Shalai without green, except that it is like one of the cards that wins you the game more often than not. Like a common play pattern will be turn 4 Shalai, and then they spend their resources removing it, thus like enabling you to play Lyra or Teferi on 5, or like they don't remove it and then you just play Lyra, and now you have a Lyra that they can't remove because of the hexproof, and you have a 4/5 Shalai that's lifelinking. And like this is, I would say, turn 5 is where you win the game against most red decks. Like that's where you turn the corner. So much of this deck here like really lines up well against a red deck, and that matters because it's still about half the format. Wrath, I know that this card gets a lot of slack in the paper Magic community, but it has been really, really good for me. In my previous iteration, I had only 2 of him, but he's been super good just at forcing your opponent to spend mana on their turn and creating opportunities for you to resolve a Shalai, Lyra, or Teferi on your turn. Or alternatively, like they try to answer him on their turn, and then it gives you an opportunity to like slam a Lyra or Teferi on their turn, and then you'll have more mana up on your turn to do stuff. And the fact that he can just jump in against a player that's tapped out and like be a 3/3 blocker, take out a 2/2 for free. Like there's a little bit of value there. And in best of one, I found him to be pretty good. Lyra, I don't think this needs any explanation. Just probably the premier win condition in the format right now. Like if you hit once with this, you're pretty much stabilized. They can't race the lifelink, and being able to flash it in with Wrath, like you're gonna blow people out. Just putting a 5/5 first striker in play, getting a card for free, getting life, cracking back. Like you just 100% you just win the game if you swing with this thing once or twice. Even if she doesn't go all the way herself, like you're going to win. And Teferi is the other card that's like your I win the game card. It helps you solve other planeswalkers with the minus, helps you just keep the cards flowing with the plus, making sure you have mana available on their turn to Wizard's Retort or Seal Away or Essence Scatter. And in these blue-white kind of mirrors, it can often degenerate like trading 1-for-1 win conditions for removal. So getting a Teferi down, like actually going -8, like I've done that a few times, and then you just slowly draw and remove their stuff from play. So it's a pretty key card. And as you can see, this deck is very expensive, a lot of mythics, and also I think very importantly, like you need to have 2 full play sets of the rare dual lands. I just can't imagine playing this deck and then having the lands that come into play tapped, like the blue-white version of those, or anything else that comes into play tapped so frequently, because you have to be able to tap out for this stuff on 3, which is double white, but you also need to have like double blue available. So it's really critical to have these lands. So this is probably one of the most expensive decks you could craft or play on Magic Online, but like I said, like you are just a lock to get 4 wins in Quick Constructed, more likely 5, 6, or 7 wins. Like the number of 7-1, 7-2s I've had just over the weekend, I think I started with like just around 500 gold, and I've just been grinding, you know, plus 500, plus 500, plus 500 off of those events. And the last thing I'll say is I am playing 26 land, which I know is not conventional, and I think if you wanted to, you could cut 2 lands. But for my preferences, like I found the only games I was losing were games where I kept a 2 or 3 lander and just never got to 4. Like there were definitely sets of Quick Constructed where, yeah, I was 7-1, 7-2, and the only losses were because I never got to 4 mana and I couldn't cast like a Shalai or I couldn't cast a Lyra. And so for my preferences, yeah, 26, it's best of 1. You want to reduce the chances that you're going to get mana screwed. And you get to subsidize that a little bit by playing the cycle lands here. And maybe you could even play like, I don't know, cut one island and put, or plains, and put some more of the cycling deserts in, if you feel comfortable with that. But yeah, that's it. I mean, if you're familiar with Standard, this deck is pretty similar. The one thing I don't play are the Merfolk, the 2/2 Flash Merfolk. I just would rather have the Essence Scatters, and I'm not actually sure like what else. Like I guess you would cut lands for those two. So, but this is it. This is the deck, and if you are playing it, post below, check it out. I think it's something that if you're tired of red deck and you have the resources, start grafting towards it. It's super fun. If you drafted a lot of Teferis and Lyras over the weekend, then maybe it's not going to be as hard to make this deck. But it's pretty ridiculous, and I'll post some gameplay for sure this week, so you can all check it out. But that's it. I'm going to call it for this video and have my coffee and get this posted. Alright, later everybody.